All right, my friend, let's talk about the latest roster buzz coming out of Dallas. Because yes, the Cowboys are finally making moves again. And no, it's not Jair Alexander. I know that name had fans going crazy for a second, but let's clear that up right away. Jair's with the Ravens now. What the Cowboys actually did was sign cornerback Robert Rochelle and defensive tackle Perrion Winfrey. And yeah, I get it. Those names might not blow you away at first glance. But stick with me, because there's more to this than just names. So here's the deal. Earlier, Dallas cut offensive tackle Earl Bostic Jr. and cornerback Garyon Conley, and honestly, that wasn't a huge surprise. Conley hadn't played an NFL snap since 2019. But then came the replacements, Rochelle and Winfrey. Are these splashy signings? Not at all. But are they potential value adds? Maybe. That's what we're going to unpack together here. Robert Rochelle? Sound familiar? Maybe not. But this guy's quietly hung around the league, playing for the Rams, Packers, Panthers, Seahawks, and even spending time with the Chiefs this offseason. He's not a lockdown corner, let's be real. But what he brings is experience and special teams value. And in a league where depth matters, that's not nothing. Plus, he's only 25, so it's not like he's over the hill. Then you've got Perrion Winfrey. Now that's a name we've heard before. Drafted by the Browns in the 4th round back in 2022, he's bounced around a bit and hasn't exactly turned into a star. But he's got size, he's got raw strength, and the Cowboys clearly see enough upside to bring him in and kick the tires. Let me ask you, do you think these low-profile signings are just noise, or can the Cowboys actually strike gold with one of these guys? Drop your take in the comments, and hey, if you're still riding with us here on Cowboys News TV, make sure you're subscribed and helping us reach that 14,000 subscriber mark. Hit that like button too. It helps get the word out to more fans like you. Now, let's dig a little deeper into why the Cowboys made these specific moves. Because if you're like me, you probably looked at these signings and thought, why now? Why these guys? Let's start with timing. The Cowboys are heading into the quietest stretch of the NFL calendar, between minicamp and training camp. So this window, it's all about tweaking the bottom of the roster, testing out depth options, and preparing for the grind of camp in Oxnard. And that's exactly what this feels like. These aren't splash signings meant to start day one. They're chess moves for competition, especially in positions where Dallas knows it needs better depth. Take Rochelle. The cornerback room isn't thin by any means. You've got Trevon Diggs coming back, Deron Bland stepping up big time, and Jordan Lewis holding it down. But after cutting Garyon Conley and seeing some inconsistencies in the back end, bringing in a guy like Rochelle to compete for CB5 or CB6 makes a lot of sense. He's physical, he's got size, and again, special teams matter here. Don't underestimate how much John Fassel values a guy who can fly downfield and make plays in kick coverage. Now as for Winfrey, the interior defensive line still raises questions. Yeah, Osa Odigizua is solid, and Maisie Smith is supposed to take a leap, but it's not exactly a dominant group. Winfrey's a former 4th rounder for a reason. He's explosive when he's right. The problem is, consistency and off-field discipline have been issues. Still, this is a low-risk move. If he shows flashes, awesome. If not, no harm done. So let me throw it back to you. What do you think is the real motive here? Are the Cowboys just filling out the 90-man camp roster, or is there a method to this madness? Hit the comments and let me know if you think Rochelle or Winfrey has a real shot at sticking once final cuts roll around. And just for fun, quick poll, who has a better chance to make the 53-man roster? Type Rochelle or Winfrey, and let's see where Cowboys Nation stands right now. All right, now let's talk about the flip side. The releases. Because while it's easy to get caught up in the new additions, the names that were cut actually tell us just as much, if not more, about how this coaching staff views the current roster. The most notable cut? Garyon Conley, a former 1st-round pick who had some solid years with the Raiders, and a guy the Cowboys brought in hoping he could offer veteran depth at corner. But here's the reality. If he couldn't separate himself during OTAs and minicamp, it's hard to imagine him suddenly standing out in the chaos of training camp. And let's be real. At this stage in his career, Conley's ceiling is likely known. This staff seems more interested in finding upside, not retreads. Then there's Zellers, a long snapper. Yes, a long snapper. I know it sounds minor, but think about what it signals. Releasing a long snapper before camp? That screams confidence in Trent Sieg, the veteran already holding down the job. This move was more about trimming camp reps than anything else, and it's a quiet vote of stability at a specialist position that often flies under the radar until something goes wrong. What's also interesting is that these cuts weren't random. They made room specifically for Rochelle and Winfrey. That tells you these weren't just tryouts. The Cowboys had specific roles in mind, and it looks like they've already decided who's worth a closer look when the pads come on. Let me ask you this. Were you surprised by any of these cuts? Or did it feel like the Cowboys are simply trimming the fat before things get serious in Oxnard? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear if you think cutting Conley was a mistake or a smart move. And here's a fun one for you. If you had to cut one more player today to make room for a new addition, who's on your bubble? Let's play GM for a second. Who's the odd man out? Next up, we've got to talk about Brian Schottenheimer, because something about his fingerprints is all over these moves. So now we come to the man who's quietly becoming one of the most influential voices in the building, Brian Schottenheimer. Let's not sugarcoat it. This latest wave of signings and cuts, it's got Schottenheimer written all over it. From the type of players they brought in to the ones they let go, you can feel the shift in philosophy. It's not just about talent, it's about fit. And Schotty is making it clear what kind of player he wants on this 2025 Dallas Cowboys team. Let's take a closer look at Perrion Winfrey, a guy who plays with an edge, who can be disruptive in the middle, and who absolutely thrives in an attacking scheme. That sounds a lot like the kind of interior presence Schottenheimer wants to deal with on the other side of the ball. Why? Because he knows the kind of D-line that gives quarterbacks headaches. Quick, aggressive, nasty. Same with Robert Rochelle, a lengthy, physical corner who can challenge at the line and stick with speedy receivers. That's the kind of player who can get physical with WRs in practice, push the tempo, and help develop this wide receiver group the way Schottenheimer envisions it. Tough, fast, and ready for war. Even the timing of these moves, right before mandatory minicamp, speaks volumes. It's not just about giving these guys a look, it's about installing a culture. Schotty's trying to bake this thing. In early, before training camp even starts, that kind of urgency, that kind of hands-on personnel influence, it's rare from an offensive coordinator. And that begs the question, is Brian Schottenheimer quietly becoming the second most powerful man in the building behind Mike McCarthy? Or is this the front office simply giving him the freedom to shape his side of the ball? Let's talk. Do you like the direction Schotty is steering this offense, even indirectly? Are these the kind of players you think will make a difference in crunch time? Because next, we're diving into the bigger picture. What all of this means for the roster battle as we head into Oxnard. All right, let's pull it all together now, because every move we've talked about, it's pointing to one thing. The Cowboys are already deep into shaping the 53-man roster. And trust me, these aren't just filler names or back-of-the-roster swaps. These are real evaluations, real battles brewing. And with minicamp here and training, camp in Oxnard just around the corner, the clock is ticking fast for guys to make an impression. We're going to see position groups tighten up quickly. Defensive tackle, where someone like Perrion Winfrey could push for meaningful snaps if he brings consistent effort. Cornerback, where Robert Rochelle could be more than just a camp body if he shows special teams value and press coverage ability. But here's the part fans can't afford to overlook. When these sorts of fringe players get brought in, and others are cut, it's not just about who's better on paper, it's about who's buying in. That's where culture meets competition, and culture is clearly something Brian Schottenheimer and the staff are laser-focused on right now. So you've got to ask yourself, Who's next? Who's on the bubble now that might not even make it to camp? And more importantly, which underdog is going to show up and make a name for himself? I want to hear your take on this. Who do you think is quietly climbing the eye depth chart? Which camp battle are you most excited for? Drop your predictions in the comments. Surprise roster risers, shocking cuts, even practice squad sleepers. You know how this community works. Your insight could be the one that goes viral next. And hey, if you're fired up for camp updates, roster analysis, and every surprise move the Cowboys throw our way this summer, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This season is going to move fast, and we'll be right here breaking it all down together. So stay sharp, stay vocal, and most importantly, stay loyal. Because this roster is far from finished, and you and I, we're going to be on the front lines of every single move.